Hello and welcome to the Get Lit Festival. I'm Kate Peterson, Director of Get Lit Programs, a nonprofit housed within Eastern Washington University. Get Lit is a week-long celebration of literature traditionally held in Spokane, Washington. This year, all of our events are virtual and virtually all of them are free. To learn more about Get Lit, to find this year's schedule of events, or to donate, please click on the link below to visit our website, getlitfestival.org. Now I'd like to introduce Claire Walla, Get Lit's Assistant Coordinator.
Thanks, Kate, and thank you all for joining us for Writing Sounds and Singing Poems, an event that will showcase lyricism both performed and on the page. Music and poetry carry an intimate relationship that will be explored through the eyes of our guests, Cameron McGill and MOsley WOtta. The event will begin with poetry readings, then flow into a discussion about the writing process and how it differs between poetry and songwriting. The event will conclude with musical performances by each artist. Let's get started with the readings. Our first poet is Jason Graham, known professionally as MOsley WOtta, a critically acclaimed artist and speaker. His work has been featured in Vortex Magazine, TEDx, StreetCon Dubai, the NBA, Sundance Film Festival, Fish Trap Rights, the Living Future Summit, and elsewhere. Recently, WOtta was resident scholar at Goddard College discussing soft forms of revolution. He is an Oregon Humanities Conversation Project Leader and Bridging Oregon Facilitator. He's also a former slam poetry champion for the state of Oregon and Ben's first creative laureate. Welcome, MOsley.
Cool. Yeah, just looking over a couple different pieces here, but I'm gonna slide in with this one. Killie Holiday, to blur a little bit between the lyrics and the poetry. Maybe it becomes poetry when it doesn't have the music to it. We found the error in arrogance, found the ego in Oregon, grabbing bars out the barriers, more appealing than oranges, spit nutritious like citrus, which means it's vitamin C, fueled by more than ambition and petty rivalry. So you can call in your cavalry, you can call in your dogs. All your assault and your battery only wins you a loss, cousin. Killie Holiday is the seed of the strange fruit, voice of the ghosts of the ones been strangled. No amount of money in the bank gonna save you. Jim Crow, escrow, nexto, nabu. Killie Holiday is the seed of the strange fruit, pain in the neck trying to see every angle. Fly with the wings of a fallen angel. Had it up to here with them hanging their values. Let's just do this part fast. Found a better way than to bleed them in a battle when a battle costs too much blood. Found a better way than to govern with a gavel when your judgment is corrupt. Find a better way than to hang us from a high rope in our family tree. You tie us down to string us up. Now your kid looks up to me. Find a better way than to bleed them in the battle because a battle costs too much blood. Find a better way than to govern with a gavel when your judgment is corrupt. Find a better way than to hang us from a high rope in our family tree. Tie us down to string us up. Now your kid looks up to me. Killie Holiday is the seed of the strange fruit, voice of the ghosts of the ones been strangled. No amount of money in the bank gonna save you. Jim Crow, escrow, nexto, nay boo. It's the story of Killie Holiday. And one more, is that right? Okay. A similar vein, quite frankly, as these pieces are looking at cycles of oppression and liberation, and how we all are involved in this process. With as most recent tragedies that have just happened in the world, indicative of an internal pain, I believe an internal pain being externalized, an internal pain that we're not looking at or don't know how to look at that becomes externalized. So this one's called Never the Same. Last one was Killie Holiday. Got me feeling run down when the sun's down. That's when I come alight, feeling like a werewolf out on a full moon, sound of the bloodhounds at night. Got me feeling wanted, got me feeling haunted, got me feeling hunted alike, feeling like a black witch up on your blacklist, sound that the black whip invites. Like, let me tell you a little true, happy ain't a paramount feeling. That's the truth. Let me tell you a little true, happy ain't a paramount feeling. That's the truth. Let me tell you a little true, happy ain't a paramount feeling. That's the truth. Let me tell you a little true, happy ain't a paramount feeling. I don't wrestle with depression, correction interjected. I wrestle with fake front facade. Masks that we're wearing out, wearing thin, wearing in public. Too taboo to show the boo-hoo, to show the wounds deep, to show the heartbeat. Just show me something, just show me something, just show me something, just show me you thing. Fresh is an acquired taste, raw is an acquired taste, new is an acquired taste. Freedom is not an escape. Give me liberty or give me death, or is that the same thing? 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 I don't wrestle with depression, correction interjected. I wrestle with fake front facade. If it's not all good, then I call bluff. To anybody, anywhere, whoever gave fucks, this is a stick up. They're gonna steal ya. If for yourself, ya don't stick up. I want that real love. Stop acting so tough. Hard as a rock have you ever met dust? Evolution crawling from the seas makes rust. Walks on water versus fish with feet that lead us. Chuck T's, Chuck D, Chuck Jesus. They say US, they say us. First 1, 2, 2 new neighbors. To you white kids saying nigga. To the big flags back of your pickup. Got me feeling run down. When the sun's down, that's when I come alight. Feeling like a werewolf out on the full moon. Sound of the bloodhounds at night. Got me feeling wanted. Got me feeling haunted. Got me feeling hunted alike, feeling like a black witch up on that black list. Sound of the black whip invites. Like, let me tell you a little true, happy ain't a paramount feeling. That's the truth. Let me tell you a little true, happy ain't a paramount feeling. That's the truth. Let me tell you a little true, happy ain't a paramount feeling. That's the truth. Let me tell you a little true, happy ain't a paramount feeling. To you white kids saying nigga, to your big flag back of your pickup. I got this white flag. I'll never give up. I got this white flag. I'll never give up. I got this white flag. I'll never give up. I got this white flag. I'll never give up. I got this white flag. I'll never give up. I never give up. Give up. Those are my pieces. Peace.
Thank you so much. You will have time later if you did want to share a few more with us, but we will move on to Cameron now. So our next reader is Cameron McGill. Cameron is a poet, educator, and musician living in Moscow, Idaho. His poems have appeared or are forthcoming in the American Poetry Review, Beloit Poetry Journal, Rhino, Western Humanities Review, and elsewhere. His chapbook Meridians is available from Willow Springs Books. Augury Books will publish his first full-length collection, In the Night Field, in 2021. You can find a link to pre-order the collection on Cameron's speaker page on our website. He holds an MFA in creative writing from the University of Idaho and teaches at Washington State University, where he co-directs the Visiting Writer Series. His poetry and music lives at CameronMcGill.com. Please welcome Cameron.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, MOsley, for that beautiful reading, for being here and joining me tonight. I'm joining you all from Chicago on the ancestral homelands of the Ojibwe and the Ottawa and the Potawatomi nations. I splitting my time right now between Chicago and Idaho, but I'm glad to see all of you, or digitally, as it were. I'm going to read a few poems from In the Night Field. It doesn't come out until June, but yeah. So this first poem, a couple of these poems will have latitude and longitude coordinates as the titles. So I'll just read the first time. So 41.9740 degrees north, 8767. 82 degrees west, and that's somewhat close to where I am in Chicago. I'm less the buildings I used to live in, and more the strangers passing in their windows. The woman dancing with her baby, holding him high. A man carrying laundry to the bedroom with a beer. I return your shadow to where I found it in me, beside chimneys on Damon Avenue, in an alley piling breath into January. I live in too much silence. There needs to be someone in the car, the room, the bed, the world in its heartbreak of mastery wants me undone. To come here knowing nothing should want to speak except the wind and frost on the grass and shadows of trees on Winnemac. This all starts to sound the same. The city, the block, my assurances, the deficits they make of memory. Yesterday, I met the woman I lived with for years. My remembering a bath. Her knees, islands in the cooling water. I'm afraid describing things ruins them. That's not true. It was me who asked what the body wanted and didn't listen for the answer. This latitude and longitude is 40.1164 degrees north, 88.2434 degrees west. I think of youth as one long summer incorrectly. Mornings, the gray of a horse's pink tongue, farmers calling in the corn from Thomasboro, surrounded by harvests, tall as men, gaunting doorways at train stations, sunburnt and matchless at Logan and Water. I've grown away slowly like a fingernail. Where is my sister in her torrential blonde, running skinny in the yard with the neighbor boy who'd later hang himself? How I didn't try to love him. Who, torpedoed by sadness and psychiatry, chased me home, yelling all his mind at the street, the decrepit limousine our lives had been. Here is a promise the length of my body, that you will take me like a silo of smoke, leaving the cigarette in my father's hand. The dreams I had, forgive me. When spring's tornadoes came, we raced with paper to the basement and drew them. I'm going to do a poem that was kind of a later addition to the book. And it takes its title from a Van Morrison song from the album Veed and Fleece. You don't pull no punches, but you don't push the river. And this poem's called William Blake and the Eternals. I was a late arrival here. Years spent pulling my voice apart like a wishbone for song. I started a band to meet girls and metaphysicians. We called ourselves William Blake and the Eternals. Something was missing. I sang gulls. It sounded like girls in an English accent. I sang what is emptiness to what is no longer empty. We had no hits, obviously. They dropped us in late spring with the noise of a coffee mate clicking. They'd done the numbers, and no. It took a sleepless year in a stranger's basement on Monticello not to kill myself. I sang, I've done the numbers, and no. Our only song had been a poem about a man holding a lantern at the end of a long hallway lined with books and firewood. He haunted me, as did his horse, which all night would shift its legs, stamping gently the floorboards. The song was called Farriers. I sang it only once in Montana in late August '89 as my father and I stood in a field at dusk and with the fog holding everything. A yoke of starlight lifted from him, weightless and lifetimes ago. Should I do one more? Are we on time? I'll just do one more and yeah. This latitude and longitude will take you to Moscow, Idaho, if you want to go with me. You don't have to. A bird's breath of twisted light combs the porch. I call whatever blasphemy to the dusk and drink dark beer. The altar of March answers me with cold that shuttles the junk to dreams of hills. I wait in a doorway for what? Something anxious in me, coveting clouds or widows asleep on roofs like rain. The park I pass, heavy, closed with shadow. If I say starlight unanswered like a phone, I'm standing in the gangway where sleep has gone, idling in the moon discs of money trees, in the alley of moss-painted branches. Walk with me further. Cameron, do you take this clock tower in the dark to be your answer? Twice its creamed peel says the moon is a cone. You'll forget. You're talking to yourself. There is no recourse. I'm dialing the number of a dead friend, letting the signal busy my apology. Everything is still here, I say, except the world has gone to jail. If I say our minds, I mean how far apart. If I say a tree with birds, I mean my body. If I say your loss sings, I mean back to me. Thanks. I'm going to switch the view here so I can feel part of this group of 4 people that I see now. I'm really grateful to be able to have a chance to talk with MOsley about songs and lyrics and poems and how we think about our practice of being creative writers in those 2 genres, or if we consider them 2 genres, or if we could consider them like siblings separated at birth, poetry and song.
Yeah.
So I wrote a lot of questions down because I have a lot of questions about this myself, and I'm sure you do as well. But I figured maybe we can start with just, was poetry your entrance to music, or was music your entrance to poetry?
Man, that's okay. Will you remember that?
A lot to that. I realize that, but just in terms of that
will
beginning.
You remember, if I derail this for a second, will you remember that question?
Okay. Sure.
There were 2 things that you did that I thought were very significant, and one was in your introduction that you gave, and one was in the introduction that was given for you. One of them spoke to capitalism, which I want to slide into, and then one of them spoke into paying attention to decolonizing and colonization. So one of the things that you did was you acknowledged was Potawatomi, Ojibwa, indigenous, indigenous people of the Midwest.
So many more than that, but area,
right, yeah, and massive, and these are massive and long-standing groups, nations, tribes, which I did not do for being here in Central Oregon. So which would include here the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, Wasco, Paiute, Klamath, Modoc, and then of course we're also saying more, and then all the other people who were moving through those places during these times as well. So you did that, and then also to acknowledge my consumerist monopoly capitalism that I also subscribe. There was a website. So check out wakerecords.org. It looks like that. So there's that. And then you were asking about this introduction to poetry and lyricism. I think I was part of a generation that got swept up by folks who thought that they could just give kids soy milk and carob and we wouldn't notice the difference and stuff. And along with that was like PBS. And with that was rhyming, like rhyme. I remember walking home and trying to get other kids away. I still try to get people to freestyle with me now just to be like, rat, now you go, so I remember I remember the way words sounded being physically enjoyable and engaging with folks that way. And I think that we can get real deep with like the heartbeat of your mother and these kind of things as introduction to song as well. But I think it was like a basic rhyming game and like hearing some songs, ancient songs that become like the ABCs or whatever, that were an introduction. How would you answer that question?
Uh, I feel like starting to play music was my first foray into some kind of expression where I felt I was brought to a different kind of attention to myself as a person. The questions, seeking out how to explain the world to myself, how to think through the things that you're feeling and what to do with that, right? So you know, starting to fill little notebooks, you know, with ridiculously silly aphorisms as a kid or whatever it was, you know, and putting them in a drawer and thinking like, well, I know this isn't good, but it feels important, right? Like that starts for me. Starting to play music became a way to find a voice that for creative expression I hadn't had before that. And so then it became the lyrics, like, hey, which, you know, what was my ear attuned to, the melody, the lyrics, like just the enjoyment of listening to music. But I think in the process of spending many years of my life trying to work as a full-time musician, the people you met, the creative performers, and people like, you know, giving me poetry books when it was something that wasn't fully in my purview yet, right? And like, oh, it sounds like you like this. If you like this, like you should read this book. I mean, that so for me it felt very much like music as a way to even have an artistic side, which before that I was like, maybe I'm just an emotional kid and I'll write things down. But then like, oh, if I learn some other way to hold those things, then I could turn the attention of writing to a song or something I could share. So that's what was for me, I guess, kind of initially, you know. And of course, it just keeps going back and forth.
Did you have music growing? I mean, because some people really didn't, or maybe it was specific to like a worship practice or something like this. But did you have music growing up in your home?
In my home, yes. But I'm thinking of like records that I would have had as a kid, like of my dad's, like, you know, Willie Nelson, Neil Young, Waylon Jennings, the Beach Boys, you know, and hearing those kinds of things as a kid, when of course, like the first record I remember getting, like, I think it was probably, I must have been on CD, maybe a tape, was Depeche Mode Violator, you know. And so like, thinking of like here's my headspace right now, and then Depeche Mode Violator, and then here's, you know, other things I love, like Willie Nelson and the Beach Boys, like so strange, but like, yeah. So I think there was, my grandmother played the piano, but like there wasn't, I don't think, like there wasn't like music in the family, like we would sit and sing, or like there was other people who were, would call themselves musical, you know. But my grandmother was.
Well, my computer, you're gonna walk with me in the garage. That is my life.
Yeah.
Here, my computer's about to die. Yeah. I feel you that way. Like I had family that would sing, you know, when doing a thing. Like I remember my mom, like, would be whatever the task, whatever the mundane task was, and adding song into that, and then learning later how functional that was as a practice. Like I have to do some monotonous task, and then you add music in, and all of a sudden time isn't so egregious or so, you know, whatever. It doesn't plague you the same way. And delighting in that. And then also finding that is something that folks have been doing for a long time, where there's, you know, there's all these songs. Like I remember learning both African stuff with pounding and Irish stuff with pounding, and songs that went with these really labor intensive tasks that were oftentimes the woman's work, that were songs that like everybody knew, but specific to a certain group. Like, you know, like women, ba 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 ba, versus men, ba 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 ba. And then I also grew up in a home that had a ton of music that I didn't know the language to, but I would like fake the words along with. You know,
Mhm.
I was like listening to a lot of different world music. So then it was, or what categorically we would find at the record store under world, you know, and some like world beat mixtape or whatever. And even slang in English, like hearing how English shows up on the Jamaican tongue, you know, those kind of things, and hearing like the way words are bent. Same thing with like what you're talking about with hearing the different dialects of English as it bounces around the states, you know, with like, and you hear that like in country music, you hear that in
Yeah.
whatever. And so, and just again, the joy of the feeling of the sound, you know. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
thanks
no,
for traveling from there to here with
no,
me.
it's great. I'm happy to be in the garage.
Yeah, me
If I
too.
was in the garage with you, we should both be in the garage recording this. Yeah, it made me think about that first kind of like you were saying, like singing, not knowing the words. Somebody gave me a guitar, and I can't remember, but I think it was related to a church event. And we didn't go to church a lot, but I remember being at like a youth group thing at some point. But somebody youth groups and acoustic guitars, of course, like
Yeah.
right. Somebody gives me an acoustic guitar. It, and in the guitar case was a book of songs like that you could learn the chords, right? But I didn't know any of the songs, so I tried to learn the chords on the guitar, and then I just sang their words, but I just made up a different melody, you know, to all these random songs. Some were probably Bob Dylan, some were probably, you know, I have no idea. And that process of like, where might this take me? That was like, okay, well, if I can make up the melody, then, well, I should just try to write some of my own words, and then and the melody, so I know what I'm supposed to try to sing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just remembered that. That's been, I don't know. I think that's how it started in a strange way. Like just like it often does, like getting it wrong, but finding something that's different.
That's how it works. That's how it starts.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the lounge hour.
That'd be like a funny sketch where like you lounge on instruments, like until they make
it'll get less funny as this continues to happen through the night. But yeah, but I'm trying to. I've been thinking a lot about influence, and in terms of music, in terms of poetry, in terms of how they kind of get, how they speak to each other, and how they can influence each other. I mean, at first, before I was reading poems, and of course, there's like a history of music you can always draw inspiration from. But once you start kind of like listening to poets and listening to music and putting them together and seeing who's influenced by who, like that. I loved that conversation that is kind of a way into a new language for us as artists, maybe, and also maybe a new way of like remembering our own experiences, having access to more language to express our experience. Maybe is a better way to say it.
Sure.
I'm curious about, you know, maybe even in our practices today, how we you know start. Our, you know, even the practice of writing or working on a song with someone else's influence, you know, consciously or not, on the top of our brain as we're working even.
Yeah, there's a lot that sort of fires for me as you say that, but it made me think about sort of like innocence, and then there was something also too before about, you mentioned right before you hit the keys about sort of before you know, but like before you know you can get it wrong, and it, you know, and I was, you know, like, and I saw some joke, like some sort of meme style joke of like how not different the expert jazz musician is from the novice starting banging on the keys, you know, or whatever, and that there's this great sort of spectrum of like knowing and then knowing that you know and letting go of your knowing to sort of this sort of returning thing. But I remember being influenced deeply I was in homes where there usually weren't Black folks present on the phone. So they sort of floated in my head and my heart. Similar for me, music was like that as well. And I remember hearing certain folks like Howlin' Wolf and a Muddy Waters, and how I was so deeply connected to the feeling of that music, being all of like 5 or whatever, but still knowing what they were talking about. I might have been talking about breast milk, and they might have been talking about whiskey, but I knew what hunger was like, and I knew what suffering was like, and I knew there was something that was true, that was core, that was base, that allowed me at that very young age to access these very big grown-up feelings, and then copying them, trying to put my voice down low, and then like later on, running into things like appropriation, for example, and to like, at what point is that no longer okay? And what culture do I come from that allows me to walk freely? And in what places is that not cool? And what would have happened if a Bob Dylan, for example, had that appropriation red flag pop up so much that he didn't have access? And then like blues tradition is all about like, well, can you play it? Can you live it? Do you know it? Then you do it. Then you are the blues. And so there's like this, there's like a pass in this way, but there is like an initiation sort of practice that happened. So all these things are firing for me as you were talking about that stuff. But I think part of like the question I kind of want to bounce back at you is like dealing with this, the like sort of the equation of music, and how you can technically do something that's perfect, but that's not always what gets you there. Sometimes it's that sour stuff or whatever. So I kind of have a question I wanted to bounce at you about like wrong, of like how you navigate the wrong stuff or the sour stuff or whatever.
I think for a long time I didn't. Like I was so scared to make mistakes and of course not knowing anything when I was doing it. I was first starting to make records, that I was trying to get it perfect in my head, or whatever performance I could do at the time, not realizing that I was missing, of course, all of the sour stuff that would actually have made it good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and if someone at one point was just like, don't let perfect get in the way of great.
Right.
Like you have an idea, but in trying to chase whatever it is you're thinking that needs to be, you've missed the opportunity to let there be the aspect of learning and revision a bit while it's happening, right? Like I was like letting the messiness be part of the art rather than trying to extricate it. And
yes,
that took me a while, to maybe even have enough confidence in myself to embrace the sour parts, right? But when you do, you realize that's really where like the heat comes from.
Yes.
Right? I don't know. Or I do.
Yeah, it's difficult
for me.
No, I think you do. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that's really difficult to sort of maintain. This is one of the reasons why I love what poetry can do. I love what song lyricism can do. Is it allows for some of the best parts of that sort of our innocence or our child self to not be disposed of so quickly for the correct way or the right answer. And I think that's so valuable. Even as I like cringe as I say breast milk, and then I'm like, oh God, what did I just say? Like, but allowing for the reality of what it is to be human, and the messiness and the what is true for me, the experience is being equal to, if not greater than, sort of the data, but this goes into like just a bigger kind of thinking right now as we're talking about things like oppression and decolonization, all these things. I feel like as much as that's part of the discussion, what we're also allowing in is a true sort of being able to be more we're allowing ourselves to say honestly how many different things actually influence this, for example, American, as it means the United States experience, understanding that to say American and to mean the United States without qualifying that is kind of racist, because there's also, South America, whatever. But, but that is such an important part. And if we're going to have that many different flavors, what actually works is what works. Like if folks eat it and they're like, it's like with comedy, like, comedy works because people laugh, like, and so like, if you can somehow get the cumin in with the cinnamon and all that, and it works, then like, who's to say, even if you like spilled it by accident, I mean, and I really like that part in that process. I gotta leave again. I'll try to remember. I wrote down some of your lines that you from when you're reading that I love so much, like something about, now I have to paraphrase, but something about like cramming breath into January. What was that? Like there's things like, you're not allowed to talk like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's like some sort of very like uptight, sort of made up, not real, but sort of monstrous character that goes around with just immaculate everything and tells you this is incorrect. Like how dare you do this to our perfect, whatever, English language or something. It's an act of defiance in a sense,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense, because thinking about even those permissions, like that to get to that place where you have permission within yourself to be like, I'm going to try to write how I'm feeling, and and I won't get it right, but I'll keep attempting to try to do it right. If it's something where I feel that art is getting me closer to a place where I'm understanding what it is I want to say, I'm understanding better the world, or I'm understanding better myself, or at least getting to questions, right? Trying to think out on the page or in the song, like questions I have. And so, yeah, I think that permission to be able to allow yourself to try those things and not be like, I mean, I remember, maybe you do as well, like early on, like sharing your songs or poems, even with your close friends, so embarrassed. I was always so embarrassed.
Yeah.
Like, what a joy to like be, a creative person in the world now, and like, and have it be a thing of empowerment and not embarrassment. Like, just like being able to like share something and own it, and like let that, and be part of the family of people who live their life in that thoughtful way. That was like the best, like one of the best gifts I think I ever could get.
Yeah. It was to my embarrassment that I didn't think that they weren't terrible poems. Like reflecting back, like I would be like, oh, I remember writing a poem to the girl, Marie Bruce, in 4th grade called Moon Horse. And I was like, bail, like obviously she's gonna marry me because like this is so good, And
I think I've used Moon Horse in here, so I'm still with Moon Horse. Like that's still my jam. So.
Marie Bruce, yeah. No, but I mean seriously, like I think that level of embarrassment, it can be very actually useful, and there is inevitably a kind of humility that's part of this practice. I mean, it's very humiliating practice.
Right. Yeah. It is. I'm not sure how much time we have. I think we have a little bit more time. Your nods. Okay.
I just get going, and I just trust.
No, I love it. Like this is what I was hoping that it would be, that we could do this. There's so much joy to share about it, and introspectiveness and sadness and all the things that go with creating. I was thinking about the difference in trying to, I guess, in writing some of these questions, I was just kind of, well, how would you answer it, Cameron? Like, you don't even know. Thinking about like the quietness, at least for me, that like poems start from, versus like what you were saying, that allowing that messiness or soundness, that the noise that starting a song comes from, where I know, where it is, the more wrong notes than not, or just being in the practice space with the band, like making noise, literally making noise until you find something that in some way pleases you, even if it's not beautiful, if it's something that you want to be noisy. That process of starting with noise rather than starting with silence was interesting to me. I don't know if you experience that in working.
I think I may have experienced it, but I don't know if I've ever given it that particular. I don't know if I've ever put words to that consideration. That's actually quite lovely. I feel, because again, just some permission granting of that, it could start from either, and that one can become the other, you know. That's such a great question. And, you know, when you were saying that, it was interesting though, because I was thinking about, isn't it Murphy, James? No, what is the guy? LCD Sound System, the
Yeah, James Murphy, yeah.
James Murphy, yeah.
Yeah.
Him talking about having to get so quiet himself in order to hear the noise, I guess, or in order to hear the sounds, which actually makes a lot of sense for the kind of music that he makes. It so like orchestra or whatever, but he had to really get quiet, and I've appreciated that more and more, especially as I get older. There's still a kind of like urgency that I have, but I'm seeing the benefits of, as I'm surrounded by other people who do it well, of stillness and of silence, and what fruitful things come from, what insightful things, what useful things come from that. Because it's in like every kung fu movie. I was just telling a friend of mine that he's like this character, that we are these two sort of archetypical characters or what, but like the blah, 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 and then there's the one dude who just goes bink, and then the other guy just topples over or whatever. And I'm becoming more and more fascinated with the folks who can convey so much with less. And this is something I do really like about poetry. One of the things I noticed about the architecture of your poetry and the economy of words, of what you read, what you're able to convey. If every word has a like sort of a priceless value, you don't want to just spend your dollars frivolously, to really choose carefully each one. And I think that seems to be born from a deep kind of listening that maybe can only come from being in at least stillness, if not silence. You know,
That's really interesting. When you said dollar and we were talking poetry, it's like that. There's no dollars in poetry.
You know, it's so funny. I had a guy tell me I officiated a wedding. I didn't know the folks. It was like they needed somebody last minute. I said I'd do it. And this was pre-COVID. And he wrote religious books and had done very well for himself writing religious books. And then he asked me what kind of money, I keep doing that now, what kind of writing I did. And I said poetry. And then he said the same thing. He goes, there's no money in poetry. And I said, I've only made money mostly from the poetry that I've done. And he's like, I don't see that as possible. And then I was thinking to myself, like, you write books about faith and you don't see how it's possible. Like, so yeah, but I mean, you know, I do think that there's been a swell from commercialization perhaps, but certainly the popularization of certain types of poetry, oftentimes in marriage with, if not born from, Black culture, right? So, and part of that is comes from blues, comes from jazz, comes from hip hop, comes from what we call spoken word and slam poetry. But, you know, oral traditions and sharing, you know, sort of the griots practice or whatever, and making a career out of telling one another, and in the call and response, having it told back to you, you know, as well. And I do see, I mean, we see that there's a commercial on right now for some like get out and be with your family thing that's talking about some kid who's in front of their phone all the time, and like, look at that, the phone's coming away from her face. And I was like,
I saw that last night.
Yeah.
That's it. They're running that in soccer games. I watch a lot of soccer, and I saw that.
Yeah. But like the pacing, the cadence, the way music accompanies and swells with all of this. And then we have Amanda Gorman, right, for example, you know, who's so, her movements were poetic as well, but she wasn't so shocking to us. Like, what is this style? Like, we were very comfortable with what seemed to be like a sort of a classic form of spoken word, you know. So all that to say, like, you can make money off poetry. I don't know what point I'm trying to make, actually.
No, I only brought that up because I was just thinking, like, with being two musicians who've, you know, released a lot of records, you know, on their own over the years and all that, and like, you know, I could never make a living as a musician, and then I switched to poetry, which, you know, it's great because I don't know whoever said it, but it's like, it's uncorruptible. You know, there is who's going to corrupt it?
Yes, I think, and actually, I think actually we're busting up that narrative again, as
Mm,
part of my focus obviously is about
mm,
dismantling or looking at
mm,
how do we take something apart
mm,
in the science of deconstruction so that we can use as many of the pieces that we've taken apart and repurpose them and all these kind of things. Um, just thinking about that, I guess, in terms of how we can create our own narratives. We are literally writers. So in what and we practice our imagination all the time. So in what ways can we better inform folks? Because I it's good for my business if other people, in a scarcity model, if other people don't believe they can do their own version of what I do. But it's
mm.
not what's in my heart. I don't actually believe that. I know for certain you can find your own way in, but so often folks say, I'm not going to, or I'll just simply assist because there's no money in it, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That, yeah, that must, I'm glad that that's not how we've approached it. I'm glad that's not how I've approached it.
Yeah.
I feel weird to have that be the reason to not do art when when it's something that that
Mm.
is becomes your life. There is no choice really, right? I mean, there are choices along the way, right? But it's not, you know, this is something that I know we're gonna try to make a life's work of, and then like what that means to you as a person is, um, yeah, that that the work is never done, and that I think is maybe an important concept to kind of have as you move in the world too.
Yeah.
I I think we have a few more minutes because we started a bit late. I was thinking because when we first met briefly at Fish Trap several years ago, and you were teaching, and I got to thinking about um, being teachers of creative writing and how being creators of poems and songs, and how we share those disciplines with our students. Um, I feel like I'm always trying to define that, like what is the job of the creative writing teacher,
Mm.
right? Like in terms of encouraging language empowerment, but uh, almost like maybe introducing students to things, and then the joy of seeing them run away with it and create something far better than the thing that you gave them
Oh,
to look
yeah.
at. So I don't know, maybe we should talk a little bit about the teaching side of it, which is fair, you know, is, I guess in the last few years fairly new to me, and
Mm.
after being out of grad school. But yeah, just figured that was something maybe we could.
I think that's one place where I actively make peace with being a con artist and
Hmm.
being a liar uh, and being deceitful to the extent again that I have certain permissions that I've granted myself. But other than that, and maybe I've practiced, maybe I've put more hours in, but other than that, I'm looking at a peer. And you think that I am some sort of whatever authority here. But my job really is to create a space which I don't have a formula for. I do sometimes and then I lose it again. But my job is to create a space that's safe enough to do the unsafe thing, I guess would be the contrived answer there. But like that is really what it's all about because I know most people, I think, know what they need to say but don't want to say.
Hmm.
And that's usually the territory where like your writing can come from. Not always, but especially when we're talking again about maybe things that you might perform or sort of some of the traditions of the sort of confessional with like the oration, the stories that we tell, maybe spoken word, maybe performance poetry, whatever. But I feel like oftentimes, yes, the beautiful things, and yes, the ways that we can form and mold and move language. Yes, the way it feels good to say certain words together, and but really, I have heard beautiful poetry totally unintended to be poetry. You know, I've heard the beautiful writing. It's almost like trying to create sometimes such a frenzy or some sort of distraction that people like almost inadvertently end up tumbling into their own genius. So that's what teaching really is, much more is like, how are we going to activate your trust in your own genius, because it is going to be your own path. And so I'm going to be like, come this way, and then you're going to walk behind me, and I'm going to be like, no, not like that. Like, get out of here. And then I'm like, where are you going? So like, this is very difficult to teach, like, for especially youth, as I grow older and I'm farther away from my youth. So there's less, with each year, there's less trust that I know anything about my youth from the perspective of the youth, right? And I'm oftentimes put to teach with the youth. There's already inherently so much doubt going on in so many other places that maybe somebody at a different age, and I wouldn't actually restrict it to age, but the doubt part, doubting so much already in a middle school, in a high school experience, that you learn to cope with, but maybe doesn't go away later on. You maybe learn better to cope with. Trying to convince them, lean into everything that you've been running away from and practicing hiding your entire, like, let's talk about that. Like, this is a real challenge, but also that, and also to say to them, not only do I want you to do that, but I want you to prevent, for example, really concretely, and this is also something that we can't discuss all the way, I want you to prevent your voice from being unheard when you're in an unsafe space and you don't know how to elevate your voice. You can practice that here. I want you to prevent some sort of suicide or homicide. I want you to prevent, and this is fraught with risk and legality, litigious culture that we live in. Like, I'm not trying to get, there's probably one reason why I don't actually work for any one boss is so I'm always getting fired, like I'm always leaving to the next thing. But it's scary because we don't have a lot of initiation practices in this en masse in this culture. And the arts seems to be one place that they sort of somehow survived a little bit. So, but again, it really is a bit of a con to be like, yep, I know, because I know for me today, for this one specific thing, maybe.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's I really appreciate the way of, you often hear people, that are teaching talk about imposter syndrome and like, I am trying to do my best to kind of engage the students, but I don't know, I'm not sure if this is the way forward. That's so interesting to think about it. Like, to me, it does, like, all of that. Yes. And this idea of helping in some way the student have it, like, find that agency, finding that the agency that that is already in them, but a mode of expression, like, just blows it wide open, right? And it's like, is it a song for me? Is it poems for me? Is it dance? Is it painting? What is that is going to sell, that is going to be a language or artistic empowerment for me as a student, that I now have this and believe in this agency that I have to create something, to change something, to do something. And maybe that maybe seems the best that I feel like I could hope for, and it's like, how do we show, not this simile, but that simile? It's like, it's not that, right? But it's just like, what is your experience in the world that brings out that strange perception that you see things in an unfamiliar way that I don't, and your unique perception of the world becomes like the building block of, like, the student's voice in the poem or the song. Those moments, seeing those moments, I feel like is like the most rewarding, just to kind of like be present, not screw it up. Like, try not to screw it up.
I recently heard a teacher talk about how difficult it is when you have to produce something. And some of what I hear in what you're saying deals with the process and allowing the person not to arrive at a certain time because that's when class ends, but like just in this a warmer kind of inviting that doesn't have that cold, like, hammer of, well, this is the day that we have the showcase, so you got to deadlines can be great. Deadlines, fear is an ally. Like all those things that could work against us often work with us and for us in ways we wouldn't expect. But I do like what I'm hearing in the invitation. Is the sun moving in your world in Chicago? It, like, your face started to, like, you were like,
I
so
hope
I was
so.
like, yes.
Am I alive?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lamp, which in retrospect was a bad choice, but
I think it's
I
good.
knew that it would start in Chicago. Like I'd start the event like this, and then I'd have to flip on the overhead one, which is even worse. So yeah, this, I don't know, it's moving. It's moving somewhere. The room, the rest of the room is, yeah. Should we do some songs or other things that you want to talk about? Anything else
Yo, I want to rip up like 3 more hours. Here's another confession that I want to make. Did I say already that I screwed? Did I say anything about my kids? Did I mention my kids at all?
I don't think so. No.
So like I
have to look over the shoulder.
Yeah, I legit thought, so my, COVID. So my kids have been home. So when we planned this, my kids were still supposed to be at home, and my lady's getting ready for work. And then I realized this is happening at the same time I had to pick up kids. So when I calmly earlier was like, let me just get a glass of water, I ran screaming out of here, cussing, saying like, and so I had to get somebody to go and pick up my kiddos. But now that Grandpa's picking up the kiddos, because I got it like that. Shoot, dude, whatever you want to do, man. It's like I got nothing but time. But I know there is time as a factor. But I'm like, yeah, let's just do whatever.
So Grandpa was on call.
Oh,
that's like that's on the spot right there. That was because you weren't gone very long. I just thought you went to the bathroom or got some water. Maybe your life thing.
It's almost as if it's not my first time doing it. It's almost as if, oh, lo and behold, you don't respect time. You just want to talk for hours and hours. How could that possibly penalize you? You don't know when to pick up your kids. So they're good. They're coming here. They'll probably actually come bust in. That'll be the hard hammer. That's if anything is.
Okay. Well, should we move to a song?
Great, man. I'd love to. I have to say, I'm so aware of my interrupting, and it's a set from the land that I come from. This is a sign of respect. And I understand that some people are like, you don't burp after the meal, but I interrupt. I really
after the song. We burp after the song.
I really enjoyed listening to you, and I really enjoyed your writing. I'm not just saying that to be polite. I really enjoyed listening to it. To say I'm really looking forward to hearing some of your singing, but I also really liked hearing you juxtaposed to my style. Was so nice. It was so nice. The cumin and the cinnamon. It was so nice to have those things together. And I was like, oh, how refreshing, because it was da 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 da. And even in our talking, I really appreciate the compliment here.
I do as well. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have a conversation and to share how we do what we do. I mean, we didn't have a chance at Fish Trap. I got to hear you perform, which was amazing. But in terms of like, having a long conversation there, it wouldn't have. Just with being in class and you teaching and everything. But that I'm just glad it worked out. That was 2018, I think, right? Isn't that what we meant? 2018.
I think so. Yeah, and which is
crazy.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, so I'm grateful to be able to like actually have this. Hopefully, the first of more.
Great. Yeah.
So should I do one? You want me to do one on the piano and then we can switch it up?
Great.
Yeah. I have to go into the other room. Hold on one second. Okay, so it's right here. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, no, I got the real pianos in Moscow. But luckily, a friend was able to lend me this. So yeah, this is a song called American Health Insurance. Sorry for the squeaky chair. got health insurance, it only works if I die. Oh, but what if I live? America's when there's no words left to say you don't like it, kid. Give me that wrecking ball of faith, give me the heart that knocks it down. One day all those asses you're kissing will bite you on the mouth. Oh no, who you gonna shove? How you ever gonna stay, babe, in a world you don't love? The mission of the savior wit is to never ever die. But I laugh so hard at my fortunes, mama, I cry. I got a terrible feeling I'll just go out hunting with my mouth. This American restlessness I've built a fortress of. Oh no, where you gonna go? How's it ever gonna last? The parade is filthy and fast. In a world I don't love. We got all these freedoms to say keep the lights on. I've seen this place in the dark. Matt and I were in Reno when the hills was on fire. This trashy ghost wanted sex, there was a fight. He got a blue black eye. Folks are scared to talk to the people on the street. Afraid they're all just rapists and murderers out there murdering. Oh, in the spare time looking for blood. Hope they never find. How can I spare a pint for a world I don't love? Yeah, where am I gonna go? How's it ever gonna last? The parade is filthy and fast. In a world that I don't love. In a world I don't love. In a world I don't love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, thanks for listening.
We could do a whole, as I was watching you.
Tour, live album?
Okay.
Video?
All right. I'm down.
Okay.
I'm down. We could do a talk just on the language of body and how necessary that is in order to communicate some of this stuff. To like actually, you know, as I'm learning this psychology of being a singer, right? Like I know I can sing, but then oftentimes if I'm in front of people outside the shower, it goes away. Or if I'm not doing it, and there were certain things that I watched how you were moving that I feel like were less performative and more functional. Like you might have to actually move that way in order to get that. I guess I'm asking.
Probably. I think if I'm not, if I feel in the moment in a performance, then maybe it will be what it'll be, right? To get the note, or like shit, I moved too far to the left in the seat, and I'm not gonna be able to hit that note. I got to move. Those kinds of things. I don't know. For me, it's always been that battle of like, if I think of the moment I'm in, the song I'm in, I ruin it for myself, and it's almost like this, like just have fun. Like for me to try to have fun playing music took so long because I was so worried about the performance side of it, you know, and self-conscious of voice and all those kinds of things, which of course is still in, but you find your way of doing it, right? And it's almost like it's always that, right? Like, how do I be in the moment? So I'm not thinking about any of those things in a performative way, but just in playing the song the way I would do it if this camera was off and I was in this room with the cat.
Yeah.
That's the best version I've got of that song, right? That rarely few people hear. But of course, like the people that can do that in moments like this is when it's really, you know, it's I don't know. I would say professional, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, no, yeah. I know as you started to say, I want to be like, never mind, don't even think about it. Don't, you know.
Right.
That's great. Well, should I play this video? Now this is the coward's road to take a.
Yeah. Do you want to do this the screen share thing and do that? And for our outro, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, well, I would like that when we see each other again, for you to kind of with a rough shove. Like, I would like you to be like, sing something, because I'm sneaking out on this one right now. I don't have to do anything. I just am going to press play on a video. I forgot that we had the video, which has all of my website and all of that. Yeah. So there was that plug already put in. But I will say, if it doesn't happen right now, which I'm going to play the video, I'll do it around the house at the very least. You know, it needs to come out. I like, again, the invitation of just in you singing and what that did for me, of like a reminder of like, oh yeah, like what's maybe the most important thing. Your body needs to like feel that. Yeah. They say like when you know, what is it? You know you're sick when you stop making space for silence, you stop telling stories, you stop dancing, or you stop singing. Like that's when you know that you're sick. Joni Mitchell had something that she was like, when the women in the kitchen aren't singing songs, that's how you know your nation is sick, or something like that. And I was like, oh. So yeah.
That may be for, I mean, we could do another talk on that. I mean, I definitely had that where I just like stopped playing music for years because I just was so burnt out. Like, didn't have it, like wasn't singing, wasn't writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's good when it happens though, because it does, like, it's like it becomes a proof of life in terms of like an enjoyment that seems pretty like ancient, like singing song, like just like, you know, making some noise and singing to it. Like there's something that to me that is like, you know, that always takes like precedent in like not precedent's not the right word. I mean, that always like is the thing that reminds me of joy the most. Like when I, you know, it's like when you find that moment that you're happy and in creating and not thinking about it. I love that. Video.
Shoot, that was a pretty good way to end. I'm just saying. All right, well, I'm gonna ruin the ending. I like ruining things.
The newest album is fantastic, and so I insist on a song.
Oh, there we go. Now, okay, now my ego is in the right spot. Okay, all right. So this is, no, but for real, that's thank you. So this is a song called Just Like Them, and this was an animation that we did actually. So we recorded it as a video and then we animated over the top, and it didn't actually take 18 months, but we did it over the span of 18 months, and it was hundreds of hours on top of thousands of cells, hand drawing these one at a time, which the tedium of that is exactly like writing a poem. All right. To my delight. This has got some cussing in it. All right.
faking. That shit tries my patience. How you wanna be? Just like them. Just like them. Underground, underrated, underdog, copycat, same game, name change, people strange, copy that. Over underrated, yeah, we over underrated. Over underrated, yeah, we over underrated. Maybe I don't want to admit that I want it. Like big booty bitches to increase my market. But maybe I don't want to admit that I want it. On top, getting topped off by internet starlet. Harem of Nottingham, sheriff of Nottingham, hood robbing, bank robbing. Who do I think I am? Catching my shadows, my guess must be Peter Pan. So how we never let happy thought, copycat, I'll be damned. Shit is working, don't know who the fuck I am. Smiling through meetings like it's nothing new again. Red blood American, cornflower blue again. I'm conditional, then why don't you pay it? Love original, I so basic. I'm predictable, I'm pretty unpredictable. You wanna be just like them, like code switching, like code breaking, how you wanna be? Just like them, like love baking, like no baking, how you wanna be? Just like them, like complacent, like complaining, how you wanna be? Just like them, like no faking, I know faking, like no faking, I know faking. Maybe I don't want to admit that I want it, or maybe I don't want to admit that I want it. But lips to these spirits when I'm feeling haunted, the gifts and the giving, but I'm in the market. They knock down the old mill, they knock down the heartland. I just bought a teepee to put in my garden. Goodbye a pie desert, get Best Buys and Target. Shoot, my chest keeps knocking like it's not disheartening. Clinging to memories, clinging to nothing. The more you remember, the more you were bluffing. I'm losing my temper, losing my mind. Spent all these embers on battling tides. Traded the torches to burning inside. And we lost the battle, but something survived. Like we're still alive, preparing to die. We're still alive, preparing to dive. Some conditional, then why don't you say it? Love original, I so basic. Individual, I'm pretty unpredictable. Like code switching, like code breaking, how you wanna be? Just like them, like love baking, like no baking, how you wanna be? Just like them, like complacent, like complaining, how you wanna be? Just like them, like no faking, I know faking, 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 I know.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. Not only did we get to hear poetry, music, we get to see some art, some visual art. The design on that was awesome. The production on that video was very, very cool. So thank you. Thank you both for joining us. And don't forget, to our audience at home, you can learn more about both of these writers and artists by checking out our website. You can also check out other festival events or donate to help support next year's in-person festival by visiting getlitfestival.org. Thank you again for joining us. Goodbye, everybody.